Well, instead of a conservative rebellion trying to sort of replace Rishi Sunak, instead, I think what we are going to end up now with is more and more of what we have seen Suella Braverman recently do during last weekend, and now even Jacob Rees-Mogg, that you're going to get all these right-wing Tories come out and say, "Oh, if if only Rishi Sunak had listened to us, if only they had listened to us, this thumping defeat, this situation that we are in, this economy, this inflation, this regulation would not be like this. Oh, how different things would be if only they listened to me," they would cry. And yet, here is the highest of highest things about this itself. They were in charge. They were in charge. They had every opportunity to implement their right-wing vision. Jacob Rees-Mogg was even the Brexit minister. Did he implement any of these Brexit visions? Did he introduce any of the supposed Brexit benefits? No. What he did was he delayed Brexit checks. And yet, you will notice a lot of these Brexiteers, including Daniel Hannan recently, of all people, actually complaining about the fact that the government has had to introduce these checks of these goods coming into the EU. Because some of these Brexiteers, including Mogg, are now saying, well, you see, our plan of let's just have zero tariffs and let's just let everything just roll in unchecked would have worked. But we're not talking about crazy Brexit plans today. Instead, of course, we're talking what Jacob Rees-Mogg now says the Conservative Party needs to do in the wake of this this general election defeat. Well, probably the upcoming general election defeat. Wouldn't be surprised if Mogg sort of, peeks around the corner and starts saying, well, if only they had listened to us. But here he is again, just like we've heard Suella Braverman. Oh, we need to have a more right-wing conservative turn, man. We need to be more conservative. Yeah, Mogg is about to say some very, very interesting things. He said this when he was being interviewed on GB News. But, the home of true conservative vision. But anyway, before we do get on into this, please remember to click on the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link down below, where you can, buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well that you can join as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel. Like I say, if you are a Patreon member or you're a Pony Club member or you join one of those, we've just done our weekly video for you today as well. So go check out the very interesting reactions I've had to a particular George Galloway post, and we talk about some of those reactions because, they are quite interesting indeed. But back on today's topic, of course, we are talking about Jacob Rees-Mogg and what he said on his GB News, should we say, interview about the loss the Conservatives suffered at the local elections. And oh boy, as I said at the beginning of this, it seems to have gone, well, let's see if we can somehow weasel our way into government. Let's see if we can get one of us sort of back into cabinet somehow. And then maybe we can, quote, change course. But this just brings back up the whole thing again. What exactly are the Conservatives going to do to turn this whole ship around? This was the whole point, remember, of electing Rishi Sunak, that Sunak was the only guy who could right the Conservative ship. He's been in power over a year. You are having less and less time, even though Rishi Sunak has still not put a date on it yet. It's the second half of the year. Ooh. So who knows when that will be. but they are running out of just more and more time. So, what is it that they are going to do to turn things around, or policy that people are going to do? Now, let's find out what Mogg had to say about all this. So, this is what he said. Last week's election results were a thumping defeat for the Tories and a warning of what is likely to follow at the general election. Although Labour under Keir Starmer is not as popular as New Labour under Blair, the electorate is now wary of a Conservative Party that has no vision. It's not just that they have no vision, I would say to Jacob. It's the fact that you have been in power for over 14 years. And bear in mind, just today, they put out a post claiming, well, this is what we have achieved over 14 years. And it's a very, very scant, shall we say, collection of successes, to say the least. But to say you've been in that power that long and that's all you've really achieved in 14 years, not exactly the most stellar record, shall we say. But he continued. He said, all we seem to offer is an arguably I can't even say this because it's just too funny. All we seem to offer is arguably competent management of the status quo, which the Labour Party now seeks to mimic. Oh, yes, the Conservative Party is such good at management. The past 14 years have been fantastic. Yeah. And honestly, it's about to get even more funnier. So remember what he's just said there. So put a pin in your laughter, in your sides. Hold them together because the best is yet to come. He says, yet the status quo is not good enough. Public services are not of a satisfactory standard at the moment. Jacob, Jacob, I thought you were the competent management party, and yet you are the party that has been in power for over 14 years, and you are responsible. Your party is responsible for the degradation of the public services that so many people are dissatisfied with. Oh, what and I would love to know, because unfortunately he didn't go into this. I would love to know what Jacob Rees-Mogg thinks we have to do to get these public services back to a satisfactory standard. Anyway, in order to try and win back the support ahead of a general election, he says, we now have to show ourselves to be on the side of voters. Okay, so what are you going to do? So he called for more tackling on immigration. Well, the Rwanda plan isn't going to work. In fact, something quite hilarious happened recently. The Daily Mail went to try and track down this solitary voluntary migrant that had gone to Rwanda, and they can't actually find them. So I'm sure that's not a scandal about to unfold, or a firework going to completely backfire in the Tory face. He also wanted to, quote, end the war on motorists. Bear in mind, you've just had London and the election of Sadiq Khan. And these areas that have just had all this ULEZ expansion, the vote share for Sadiq Khan increased. Turns out people like having clean air. Shock horror. And of course, he's called for, well, we've got to stop this net zero drive. Rishi Sunak's already like done so much to stop net zero. It is not a fact that we are running or even hobbling anymore. We've just fallen over, and we are now the Family Guy Peter Griffin scene where he's just on the ground, just going ah, ah. That's pretty much where we are at the moment. Anyway, he continued by saying, "We must now support our nation by being proud of its noble history and not giving in to those who, quote, hate Britain and all we have achieved. We must now not kowtow to the woke agenda or adjust our language to satisfy fanatics. In short, we must be conservative and show ourselves to be on the side of voters. Trust the people. It's a better slogan than coalition of chaos." Here's the thing, go back to what Jacob said about people saying, public services are not up to good, satisfactory standards. they're, they're worse than that in many areas. And of course, many areas of the country, the economy, are in a far worse state than when the Conservatives took over. They've had 14 years in power, the party of good management and good, good stewards of the economy. Brexit, also another big thing that has damaged the UK, seem to not really be acknowledging that, your grand project on that has failed. That's why I can fully see, Labour in the next parliament, saying, yeah, we are going to sort of do stuff that goes against, quote, the will of the people, as Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'm sure, will come out crying against this. But that ultimately, that's probably what's going to end up happening. Um, But this is what you were seeing now, this attempt by, oh, they should have listened to us. Only they listened to us, this wouldn't have happened. Remember, these people have been in power. They've been in fully at the levers of government. They have actively only made things worse, continuing this. Well, it's gone from a car crash to train crash to a plane crash to now we are rewatching a an attempt at the Hindenburg disaster on epic scales of proportions. But this is unfortunately the case that we are in. Jacob Rees-Mogg, even if himself somehow became prime minister in some some fantasy noble heritage coup, couldn't even turn this situation around. People would not vote for him, I think, in a month of Sundays to be prime minister. If Rishi Sunak is considered out of touch with the electorate, then oh boy, Jacob Rees-Mogg, it would be even further ahead. You'd probably get people saying, gee, that Rishi Sunak sure was in touch with the electorate compared to Jacob Rees-Mogg. But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.